Hello and welcome. I think since making these videos, this has been by far the easiest location to do such. It's quiet, it's shady, it's cool, and also there on the beach where I was talking to you from yesterday, which is literally just there, the other side of the railway line, between here and the sea. So I'm very fortunate and very blessed and appreciative of the kindness that local people have offered in allowing me to stay here whilst my kuti is being prepared, made ready, just that way a little, in the forest. So thank you for your nice and encouraging comments, saying that you're happy I'm safe and have somewhere to stay. Yes, so am I, with much gratitude. And also to all of you for all of your support. Anumodana. On with the questions and comments today. We'll begin with an old favourite, but one that is good, I think, something I bring up quite often anyway, but can you please explain rebirth? We could just leave the question at that, to which my answer would be you could look at the Pacitya Samuppada Sutta, or the chanting, Pacitya Samuppada chant, which is the 12 links of dependent origination. This clearly explains how from ignorance we go to birth, or birth through to ignorance. It's a circular, a revolving matter, rebirth in its very nature, in that without cutting our ties and fetters in this life, to this life, the nature of our mind is such that it will continue into further existence, maybe in a different form, but as a result of the causes and conditions we have put in place. But to expand on this further, your question goes on to say, specifically, and I like that, if we have no soul, what is it that is reborn? Question mark. Nothing other than knowing. So the mind. In the Pali we refer to as citta. It is not what you have now, which is purely as a result of causes and conditions that have been put in place by yourself now and previously, and will create the you, the me, the my, ahankara mamankara, me making, my making, that you see as self, personality, person. This is just as a result of the form you have taken and the causes and conditions you put in place to exist as you are currently. What is reborn is nothing of this. Only that which knows you are this now. So I know I am in this form, in this country now, as I am, as it is. As is as a result of causes and conditions I've put in place previously to be here. Not intentionally, but I've tried to carry out meritorious acts of body, speech and mind, to try and keep sila, to practice meditation, and to develop wisdom, sila, samadhi, panya, following the Noble Eightfold Path, which has resulted in me being in what is a very ideal place for me to practice, continue with that practice of sila, samadhi, panya further. Now, if I had been running around behaving quite differently, maybe like I used to, in my previous life, within this life, where I was creating different causes and conditions to be a person in business, working, acquiring materialistic, not only values, but assets, things, hedonistic, pleasurable, enjoyable, fun life, but even more impermanent, even more temporary than that we see as is human existence in anicca, in that we know very well that a brand new car is no longer brand new when you drive it away from the showroom. It is immediately suffering after the acquisition. And having discovered that acquisition is that suffering, whereas renunciation, so giving up that idealistic, hedonistic, acquisitive lifestyle and taking on a lifestyle of renunciation, letting go of those ideals, letting go of clinging to being, becoming, achieving, to success, to praise, to what is commonly thought as the ideal goal, the dream. Letting go of that through giving up things separately, one by one, in a very thoughtful way, I began to practice renunciation and found that renunciation led to more happiness than acquisition, which only led to suffering. So, in that sense, rebirth is happening right there and then. Like in each moment within this lifetime, rebirth is occurring in our minds, each mind moment of knowing. A notification sound may arrive on your phone, not on mine because they're turned off and I don't have any external contact, but if you have a text or something that goes beep and maybe you're waiting for the result of something, already the result is in your mind. What if it's this result? What am I going to do? Or what if it's this? Yes, what am I going to do? And you're in that frame of mind. You have immediately adapted, you have been reborn into that you are predicting, expectations, thinking of into the future as a result of causes and conditions you've put in place in the past. But in the present moment, here and now, you're not there, here and now. You're thinking, what is this text? Is it this? Is it that? Used to be opening an envelope, we'd sit and look at it for a little while. What is this? Is it this? Is it that? But when you open it, it is seldomly this or that. Maybe something completely different or the opposite to your expectation. Again, you are reborn into this next way of being, this mindset, this frame of mind, this life. This is within this lifetime rebirth, without having to comprehend rebirth of the mind into a new form, a new life. So your question does go on to say, I've heard several people explain the difference between rebirth and reincarnation, but I have never gotten a straight answer on exactly what is meant by rebirth. Yes, so reincarnation isn't something that comes into Buddhism and is a different word, both in how it sounds but meaning as it's interpreted, because that is, for instance, a soul being reborn as, so a personality, everything you think you are, being reborn as another human, a dog, a cat, or whatever it may be, something in the heavenly realms or the hell realms, but still that person. Now in Buddhism this is something that is not, we don't have a belief system in Buddhism. We can only go by our own experience. It's experiential. And as we can experience rebirth within this very life, in those moment-to-moment aspects of our day-to-day lives, like I have explained, all one has to try and comprehend and understand, but not necessarily believe, in regards to rebirth, and how it contrasts with reincarnation, is that there is nothing to be reborn, only the knowing. As you know, you were once, or in my case, someone working in business, and now I am a monk, there is a seamless flow of that knowing. That didn't change. It knew then, and it knows now, in the same way as it will know as I may end up be in the future. But at death, this is just the death of this body and this brain, this thinking brain, which is not the mind. This can be located in here. It's a computer in our heads, in our skulls, encased, controlling this body in terms of its mechanics and coordination, cognition, learning, intellectual development. All of this is in there, but will end like this when we stop breathing, or the brain stops working, or the heart stops breathing. These three stoppages are death. One of those three, whatever the cause, cancer, kidney failure, any amount of illnesses and diseases that kill someone, are not what kill you. What kills you is either your brain stops, your lungs stop, or your heart stops. This is death. So it's neurological, cardiac, or pulmonary. And these are or respiratory. These are the death of the body, death of the thinking brain moment. But without stopping, without any break in the flow, this knowing continues. But with no residue of the previous life in terms of what that thinking brain retained intellectually, experientially even. However, the causes and conditions that this form put in place during that lifetime will motivate, propel, direct where that knowing is reborn. This is our understanding, and that understanding comes to us from the teachings of the Buddha, whom was able to see his previous lives and therefore understand how he has ended up in this life. Depending on your level of faith, saddha in the Pali, you may say, well, that's a belief. Maybe the Buddha is trying to get us to believe something there. And if that's so, that's okay. But he's then actually not saying, believe me. He's saying you can experience this for yourself in meditation. So, to be here, you've been born. Where were you born from? Out of thin air, from nothing? We don't know. However, you can see all around, you can hear maybe stories to be believed again, but some have been proven, I'm sure. Famous composers who could play the piano at a very early age. People born in countries where little children, young babies even, can speak different languages and old languages. All kinds of things that have carried forward. That's like a blip. That's like a mistake, because that isn't the ordinary thing, which is why it's not happening all the time. Normally, you start afresh in order to begin putting in causes and conditions for future rebirth hereinafter, both within the life and after this body and brain dies again. So this mind, like the driver of a car, is just going from vehicle to vehicle, life to life. But this happens within the life too. So you can take a choice. Either way, it doesn't matter. If there's no rebirth, you lose nothing. If there is rebirth, and you've kept sila, practiced samadhi, developed wisdom, you have a good opportunity to have good rebirth, if there is. But if there's not, that doesn't matter, you're still going to have a good life within this lifetime. They call this Pascal's wager. You can't really lose. It's referred usually to the belief in God and heaven and hell. If you are good in this life, you have a good life and a good afterlife. If you're not good in this life, you have a bad life and a bad afterlife. If there's no afterlife, you have a good life now, and it doesn't matter afterwards. If you're bad, you have a bad life now, and likewise it doesn't matter afterwards. Either way, there's no sense in being bad, just be good. Simple as that. So we shouldn't get too mixed up in what will be. After all, the reason you say you have never had a straight answer on this is because who knows? Is there anybody you can ask who's actually died and actually can recount the process of rebirth and is now of an age to explain it to you? No. But we did have the Buddha who did do that, could do that, and was a living example of that. And then, within his lifetime, by becoming a Buddha, fully awakened, and as an arahant, attained to Nibbana within his lifetime and Parinibbana after his body died. So no further rebirth. What is there now cannot be explained. This is something that is not subject to anicca, dukkha, anatta. All conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control, or not self. This is anicca, dukkha, anatta. With the exception, no, not with the exception of, but Nibbana, or Parinibbana, final Nibbana, so no more rebirth, is not a conditioned thing. It isn't of this universe. It hasn't come about. It's come, you've arrived at this state, but it isn't a place. It isn't a state of mind. It isn't anything that can be. This is the nature of it not being conditioned. We cannot describe it. So, this knowing that can be reborn is something you can experience now through your practice. The ultimate, we cannot experience. We can only be assured that by this practice we will and can, if not in this lifetime, in future lifetimes, attain to it. So I hope that answers those three parts to that question. And I've tried to answer it more simply in another talk here on this channel. I think you could listen to the 12 links of dependent origination, which is a more detailed explanation of rebirth, both within the life, in this moment-to-moment idea of rebirth, and also as we're reborn into new lives, new forms. There's also a talk on rebirth, I think. So you could search English Monk, 12 links of dependent origination, or English Monk, Rebirth, where I go into it in some more detail. So, next question, which is kind of related, Advaita Vedanta. Now this is an Indian Hindu philosophy. Forgive me if I'm wrong, calling it Hindu or Brahmanic philosophy. I'm not entirely sure. But the Vedas, Vedanta, the Vedas are like the scriptures that form the basis of Hindu philosophy as far as I understand it anyway. Remembering I'm a Buddhist monk, not a Swamiji sadhu from an ashram in India, but a Buddhist monk from England, a Thai Forest Monastery in England, trained in Thailand, ordained in India, but living with Buddhist monks. However, your teacher, Swamiji Sanapariyananda, you began in Buddhism in the 90s and then have moved more towards, because of your geographical location in Australia, moving from one coast to the other, I think west to east if I've got it right, you have moved away from Perth over to the other side where there are no Thai Forest monks, and you've found a good teacher in this Swamiji whom is teaching you about Advaita Vedanta, and your question is, how can I be in peace with Buddha's teachings which says there is no permanent self? Everything is impermanent. Can the two teachings be in harmony? Well, they can't be in harmony, no. Because if you're saying, as I'm reading between the lines there, that your Advaita Vedanta is telling you that there is a permanent self, then it is contrary and to the teachings of the Buddha. Now, it doesn't mean there's a debate or an argument. You can choose yourself. Do you wish to believe in a permanent self being reborn as you are, a personality, if you think about it? Is that possible? Can you believe that? Or can you accept that that's not the case and all conditioned things are impermanent, and when this thinking brain and this physical body dies, as it will, neurologically, cardiac or respiratory, stops, that's it. Not that is it. Final, that which knows can take another form, but it won't be you, your personality, ahankara mamankara, me making, my making, wrong view, in fact. Sakkaya ditthi is personality view. Thinking this what we are in this form is us, what we are and what will continue to be reborn. Is wrong view. Even you can see that in your own life. You were a school child, a college student, a university student maybe. Maybe you were a worker, maybe you retired, maybe you were single, maybe you got married, maybe you were childless, then you became a parent. All of these phases of life are completely different phases that we live and we experience and we go through. Some which cannot even be compared with the previous immediate life leading up to it. But what knows is the same. This is all Buddhism is trying to explain. It's not asking you to believe. So they cannot work in harmony. You have to say, well, I'm going to put all my faith in the gods above. I'm going to offer all of this fruit, pour milk over, coconut over ornaments every morning, lighting incense and sprinkling flowers, walking around chanting peace and love, because then the gods will look kindly upon me and ensure that I stay like this forever and ever, floating in the universe of peace and love. If you believe that, it's very nice and it makes you happy, it's good. But the Buddha didn't ask us to do that. He asked us to really open our eyes, wake up, that's what Buddha means, and see the reality of existence. That all conditioned things are impermanent. Who can argue with that? No one. That all conditioned things are unsatisfactory. You might say, no, but I've got this there, not that going. I've got this, I've got this, I've got that, I've got that. It's not unsaturated. It is. All you have, you will be parted from, or it will be taken away from you. Even if you have it right up until the day you die, you will die. It is inevitable. All conditioned things are impermanent. And nothing is within your control with regards to this thinking brain or this physical body. You do not know even what your next thought is going to be. Try, ask yourself, what is my next thought? How fast is your heart beating? Have you any control over this? No. To some extent we can train and practice these things, but it's very difficult. This is just a body. And it forms what we consider to be this personality, but that's all. Persona means mask in some language, I can't remember which. Originally it comes from the root meaning mask, a face, a facade, yes? So you have these buildings I've seen that have great big palatial fronts, and actually behind them they're just a little terraced house. It's something they did in some streets in London during, I think, the Georgian era, where they were looking a bit bland and boring, the houses, so they put these big columns in the fronts of houses, but if you go behind, they're just normal brick, normal houses really. So it's a mask, a facade. It's very temporary, and it's even less permanent than what we believe to be our permanent self, in fact, because it breaks so easily, because the conditions can change so easily. So if you're reliant on having your hair dryer to blow dry your hair and your electric razor to shave your face, your aftershave and your Armani suits all neatly cleaned and lined up in different colours and ordered for different days of the week, and you're a very smart, beautiful gentleman. Tomorrow, you may be living, this is quite nice and it does have a cupboard, so one could just about do that here maybe, it's got electricity. But where I'm going is going to be a little bit back more on the dangerous side, in a little hut there, not far away. There might be a little bit more difficult, especially during the monsoon time, when it's raining and the material's all going mouldy, when your feet are going rotten, where they're wet all of the time, and you can't even put socks on, let alone wear your Gucci shoes. Are you going to be that very temporary facade, that persona, that mask? No. Now, I know that Swamiji isn't teaching you that, I'm just using it as an example. But there is really, people try. I think there was another question, I seem to have lost it, unless I've already answered it. Does Hinduism and Buddhism go together? Can they be linked? Hinduism takes bits of Buddhism, I think that's no problem. But the other way round, it doesn't work. In fact, in Hinduism, the Buddha is the 9th avatar of Vishnu, whatever that means. But in Buddhism, we do not have this. It has their understanding, and I'm not qualified to speak on the matter, but their understanding of anatta is different to how it is in Buddhism. Anatta in Buddhism is just, not that there is no self or nothing, but it's non-self, as in it's a construct, it's an aspect of conditioning that is also subject to anicca, dukkha, anatta. And what you're asking me is how to come to terms with the self that you perceive to be you as being impermanent. Accept it as it has to be. If you can't, then you're having to believe in something as opposed to experiencing something. I used to have 10 fingers, well, I suppose we have 8, don't we, and 2 thumbs. Now I only have, 7.5 fingers. Does it mean I'm not, that which knows that is different? No. I mean, my father had his arm amputated towards the end of his life. His right arm, very important arm. But he was still the same man from my point of view, exactly the same. And he may have found life awkward and uncomfortable, but he still would have perceived himself as the same person. In that sense, knowing. This is the mind. It's that that's reborn, really. But it's not that that's reborn. It's just the flow, a continual flow of knowing doesn't change. Just what it's knowing is changing continuously. So you die and you just carry on knowing that that died and now you're in this situation. But you're not then looking back, recalling, the previous situation, any more than we really do even within this life. I'm not continually thinking about before I came to Thailand, before I came here to Sri Lanka now, unless I need to reference it in my mind. Try to keep your mind in the present moment, and then these things don't matter so much. After all, what matters is trying to become content, trying to be, actually to experience contentment. When we're not striving to get, to acquire, to achieve, to succeed, when we can be content with as little. Firstly, so much more comes along. I can say from my own experience, by being very content with very little, since I've been here, I've only acquired more and more, which enables me to give so much away all of the time, each and every day, freely and happily, because it's not required. I'm content. As you see, well, there's a big room here with furniture, but I still live on this same mat that was given to me that I had in the other place. Still just have my pindapata, my sangati, this is my 3 robes, my 8 requisites. All of the rest of it is neither here nor there. This is my Armani, these are my Gucci. This is how it is for a simple monk living a simple life in the forest. Or if that simple monk is put in a train, it's going that way, it's going to Colombo. If it's going that way, it's going to Gaul, because this is the west coast. In fact, it stops in the town where I go to, eventually I get to on Pindapata in the morning, Alut Gama. Then I think it maybe can go a different way to Colombo, I'm not sure. But simple life, for me, means that I'm content. And this is, after all, what we're looking for. Because if you're content, then you are happy. If you're not content, even if you're temporarily happy, smiling, laughing because something great's happening at this moment, it isn't necessarily contentment. That's just a temporary state, a temporary emotion based on a bubble that will burst inevitably, very quickly. But if we establish contentment through renunciation with very little, and through the basic ways of developing happiness by generosity, by giving, by keeping sila, which is the greatest giving we can do, keeping moral virtue, the gift of fearlessness. There's a monastery you've heard of, Abhayagiri, which means fearless mountain. Abhaya means no fear. And this no fearlessness is the greatest gift we can give. And how do we give that? By keeping those 5 precepts. People know, all beings know, if you're keeping 5 precepts. You don't have to go around with a sign saying, I'm keeping 5 precepts. They just know. Dogs don't bark at you. Snakes don't bite you. It's just that simple. And you don't have to believe me. Try it for yourself. That's what I'm doing here. I don't believe anybody, not even my teachers. They don't ask me to. The Buddha didn't ask us to believe anything. He said, try it for yourself. That's what I'm doing. Okay. I think that's probably enough. There's one quick question. I'll answer it as it's there. Hello, have you considered coming back to the UK? No? If something happens, to a family member, I don't know that, then maybe I'd pay a visit. But I've not considered coming back to the UK to live, no. This is, I don't consider actually where I'll be, as you've seen. If you go back through these videos, you'll see I've been in different places. I don't plan, think, but whilst it's conducive to my practice and people want me to be somewhere, then I stay. We do have, as monks, or as a foreigner, I have to take into account consideration about visas and these kind of things. But hopefully people look after that side of things for me. Well, I have to deal with it really. It's not hard though. And try where I am to get a religious visa or a monk's visa so that I don't have to travel unduly just for visa reasons, because obviously I want to keep my footprint. I'm not speaking of just ecological things, but my plan, if I plan anything, is to do nothing, is to stop. That is my plan. And if I can stop here, it's as good a place as anywhere to stop. Stopping in the UK will be difficult. I would have to probably stay in a monastery where it's usually quite a large community, by my standards anyway, and you have responsibilities and more duties and less time for your practice. Of course, everything is practice, but I won't go into that, as I've just spoken, I think, at some length on that same subject, community versus solitude, in a previous video. So please go back to that one in the last few days or whenever it was when I talk about that. But UK, no imminent visits, no, not planned. So I'm going to stay here for now. I'm going to stop. And in this moment, I'm going to stop this talk here by saying I hope there's something useful you can use. If not, let it go. Be happy and stay well. And thank you for watching. Until next time, Sukhi Hotu.